My friends, listen carefully. The secret to your transformation lies not in what you do, but in what you feel. You may labor, you may strive, you may struggle outwardly, but until you learn to feel the reality of your desire, as though it were already true, nothing of lasting change will come. The world you see is but a shadow. The true substance is in the unseen realm of imagination. It is here, within this inner sanctuary, that you create your future, and I will teach you how to feel it. Close your eyes for a moment. Bring before your mind the thing you long for most. Do not beg for it. Do not hope for it. Simply imagine that it is yours already. Now, shift your feeling. Ask yourself, how would I feel if this were true? Let that feeling rise within you. Let it saturate your being until it feels more real than the very chair upon which you sit. This is the art, to assume the wish fulfilled and to persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact. You do not need to know how it will happen. That is not your concern. Your only duty is to enter into the state of the wish fulfilled and to dwell there faithfully. So tonight, when you lie down to sleep, enter your imagination as though it were the promised land. Feel it real. See yourself already possessing the life you desire. And if you will do this faithfully, I promise you, the outer world will reshape itself in harmony with your inner assumption. Feeling is the secret to manifestation, because it is the bridge between the unseen world of imagination and the visible world of form. Thought alone is powerless until it is clothed in the garment of feeling. When you feel a state to be true, you impress it upon the subconscious mind, and the subconscious, being the womb of creation, brings forth that which has been planted. It is not the words you speak or the actions you take that shape your destiny, but the emotional conviction behind them. Feeling is the creative force that transforms assumption into reality. The outer world is a shadow of the inner world, because every event, every condition, and every circumstance you encounter is but a reflection of the state you hold within yourself. What you see with your physical eyes is the echo of the images impressed upon your imagination and the feelings you persistently entertain. Just as a shadow cannot exist without an object casting it, the experiences of your daily life cannot exist without the inner state that precedes them. The world is not happening to you, it is happening through you. When you look at your environment, your relationships, or your opportunities, you are only witnessing the mirrored projection of your assumptions, beliefs, and emotional states. If chaos surrounds you, it is because chaos has been accepted within. If beauty and abundance surround you, it is because these qualities have been felt and assumed as real within. The inner world is the cause, the outer world the effect. To change the shadow, you must change the substance. To shift your reality, you must shift your inner feeling. Every attempt to alter the outer world without first transforming the inner is like trying to erase a shadow while ignoring the object that casts it. Imagination is the true creative power, because it is the invisible workshop in which all realities are first conceived before they appear in the world of form. Everything you see around you, every building, every invention, every work of art, once existed solely in the imagination of someone who dared to give it life within their mind. Imagination is not daydreaming or idle fantasy. It is the faculty by which you participate in creation itself. When you imagine with feeling, you enter into a state that begins to shape and mold the subconscious mind, and the subconscious, being obedient and fertile, accepts these impressions as truth and sets about externalizing them. The limitation of the senses deceives man into believing that only what is visible is real, but imagination reveals that reality is first invisible, residing within the inner world of thought and feeling. When you deliberately occupy an imaginal scene and feel its reality as though it were happening now, you plant a seed that must bring forth after its kind. Imagination does not ask how or when, it simply assumes the reality of the vision, and the outer world rearranges itself to mirror that assumption. Imagination is the beginning of every transformation, the spark that ignites the process of manifestation. It allows you to step beyond current circumstances and live in the end of your desire before the facts of life confirm it. To imagine is to exercise divine power. For within imagination you are free, unbound by limitation, and capable of moving into any state. When you realize that imagination is the creative force behind all that exists, you begin to treat it not as a passing thought, but as the sacred means by which you consciously shape your destiny. Assume the wish fulfilled, not the wish desired, because desire alone leaves you in a state of longing, while assumption places you in possession of the very thing you seek. To desire something is to acknowledge its absence, to confess that it is not yet yours, and this state of lack continues to reproduce itself in your outer experience. Assumption, however, is entirely different. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you step beyond desire into the realm of being. You live, move, and think from the reality of your desire already accomplished. This is not hoping, wishing, or waiting. It is the conscious choice to occupy the state of the end result, to feel it so real within that it becomes the only truth to you. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you bypass the doubts and questions of how or when and rest in the conviction that it is already done. The subconscious mind, which creates your reality, does not argue with appearances. It accepts what you persistently feel and imagine as true, and the outer world reflects this inner acceptance. To assume is to claim the state as though it were present now, to embody the feeling of already being, already having, already experiencing what once seemed far away. In doing so, you align yourself with the law of creation, for everything in life follows the path of assumption. Many fail because they remain in the state of desire, continually affirming lack. They speak of what they want, but never dare to feel themselves in possession of it. They wait for evidence in the world before they will believe, but the law requires belief first, evidence second. To assume the wish fulfilled is to walk in faith, to feel yourself into the reality of your desire, and to persist in that state until it hardens into fact. When you adopt this practice, you discover that assumption is not a strain or pretense, but a natural creative act. It is living from the end with such conviction that the world has no choice but to mirror it back to you. The moment you dare to assume, you step into the creative power that transforms unseen imaginal states into tangible, lived experiences. Persist in the inner feeling until it becomes fact. For persistence is the bridge between the invisible assumption and the visible manifestation. One moment of imagining, however vivid, is often not enough to override the momentum of old beliefs and ingrained patterns. The subconscious mind, which accepts impressions as truth, responds most powerfully to consistent feeling, to the steady repetition of an inner state lived and relived until it becomes natural. When you persist in the inner feeling, you are not trying to force the outer world to change. You are simply training yourself to remain loyal to the unseen reality you have chosen within. The world may show you contradictions, appearances may defy your assumption, but persistence demands that you look away from these shadows and return again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This persistence is not effort in the physical sense. It is not struggling or straining or demanding results. It is a quiet inner conviction, a refusal to abandon the inner state regardless of what the senses report. The senses can deceive, but the inner feeling is the truth that shapes the senses themselves. Each time you persist in the feeling of already having your desire, you reinforce that impression upon the subconscious, and like a seed watered and nourished, it grows unseen until it finally bursts forth as visible fact. Just as no farmer doubts that the seed he planted will one day rise into harvest, so too must you trust that the feeling you persist in will one day become your lived reality. Persistence is the secret ingredient that separates fleeting imagination from creative power. Many imagine once and then fall back into doubt, fear, or complaint when the outer world does not instantly shift. But the law of consciousness requires persistence until the new state dominates the old. If you continue to feel yourself as you once were, the past will persist. If you steadfastly remain in the new feeling, the future you have assumed must appear. Persistence is faith in action. It is the unwavering loyalty to the unseen promise, the ability to dwell in the end, no matter how long it seems to tarry. When you make persistence your habit, the act of assuming becomes effortless. The new feeling becomes familiar, then natural, and finally automatic. At that point, the subconscious has fully accepted it, and the world rearranges itself without resistance. To persist in the inner feeling is to live in advance of the evidence, to abide in the unseen reality until the seen must bow to it. All transformation requires persistence, for the outer world is but the slow echo of the inner state, and only through steadfast loyalty to the feeling of the wish fulfilled does the echo align with the song you have chosen within. Do not worry about how. Only focus on what is done. For the moment you ask how, you step out of faith and into doubt. The question of how belongs to the realm of reason, logic, and limitation. But creation is not born of logic, it is born of assumption. When you plant a seed in the ground, you do not worry about how the soil, the sun, and the rain will conspire to bring forth the harvest. You simply trust that the life within the seed knows its own way. In the same manner, the desire you have imagined and felt as real carries within it the means of its own fulfillment. Your only task is to claim it inwardly as already done, and to rest in that conviction. The need to control how reveals an attachment to the outer world, a belief that circumstances and people are the cause of your experience. Yet the law is clear: the outer is but the shadow of the inner. If the inner state is maintained faithfully, the outer must conform, though the path it takes to do so may be completely beyond your current understanding. To focus on how is to place your attention on the mechanism instead of the result, to doubt the wisdom of the creative power that governs all things. When you insist on figuring out the steps, you shrink your desire to the narrow confines of your reason. But when you abandon the question of how and declare, "It is done," you open yourself to infinite possibilities that far surpass your imagination. Consider the many instances in life where results appeared through unexpected channels. Opportunities came from places you never thought to look. Relationships formed in ways you could not have planned. The path of manifestation is always mysterious because it belongs to the wisdom of the subconscious and the deeper self. It is not your role to arrange the pieces, but to remain steadfast in the end vision. The more you dwell in the feeling of already being or having, the more life organizes itself in ways you could never have devised. This is the effortless grace of creation. The bridge of incidents arises naturally to lead you from where you are to where you have assumed yourself to be. The mind that worries about how is the mind that clings to appearances. It looks around and says, "There is no evidence, therefore it cannot happen." But the creative act begins with the unseen. Evidence is always the last step, never the first. To say, "It is done," is to live from the end, to anchor yourself in the invisible completion of your desire. Each time doubt arises, you return to this inner stance. It is done, it is finished, it is already true. In this state, you release resistance, you quiet the restless questioning of the mind, and you allow the subconscious to do its perfect work. Do not worry about how, for how is the business of a power far greater than your conscious reasoning. The seed knows how to sprout, the body knows how to heal, the earth knows how to revolve around the sun. And in the same mysterious order, your assumption knows how to manifest. To focus on how is to block the flow, to tighten your grip, to interfere with the natural process. But to focus only on "it is done" is to align yourself with the creative principle of life itself. To trust fully that the end is secure and the way will reveal itself in its own perfect timing. Feelings generate reality, not mere thoughts. Because thoughts without emotion are like seeds scattered upon barren ground, while feelings are the rich soil that makes them grow. A man may repeat affirmations endlessly. He may fill his mind with countless ideas, but unless those ideas are clothed in the garment of feeling, they remain lifeless and powerless to influence the subconscious. It is the emotional conviction behind the thought that imprints itself upon the deeper mind, and the subconscious, once impressed, produces its likeness in the outer world. Thought is the spark, but feeling is the flame that sets the creative process in motion. You can think of health while still feeling sick, and sickness will persist. You can think of wealth while still feeling poor, and poverty will remain. The law is impartial. It does not respond to the words spoken or the fleeting ideas entertained. It responds to the vibration of feeling that you consistently dwell in. Feeling is the language of the subconscious, and it cannot be deceived by empty words. When your feeling contradicts your thought, the feeling always wins, for it is the deeper truth you are living from. This is why so many people struggle to change their lives. They attempt to force new thoughts upon an old feeling without realizing that the feeling must shift first. Feeling is the doorway to assumption. When you step into the wish fulfilled, it is not the image alone that transforms you, but the feeling of already being in possession of what you desire. To merely imagine a scene is not enough. You must feel yourself in it, hear the sounds, sense the atmosphere, and embody the emotional reality of the state. When this is done with persistence, the subconscious accepts it as fact, and the outer world gradually conforms. This is why Neville Goddard declared that feeling is the secret, for without it, imagination remains sterile. Feelings also reveal the state you are truly in. While thoughts can be disguised, rehearsed, and manipulated, feelings are honest. You may tell yourself you believe in abundance, but if you constantly feel anxious about money, then scarcity is the state you occupy, and scarcity will continue to manifest. To change the outer world, you must not wrestle with appearances, but change the feeling that gives rise to them. This requires deliberate practice, noticing when fear or doubt arises, and gently shifting into the feeling of confidence, faith, or fulfillment. The power of feeling is evident in everyday life. Think of a moment when you felt deep gratitude. Suddenly the world seemed brighter, kinder, more generous. That shift in feeling colored your perception and influenced your behavior, which in turn influenced the responses you received. Conversely, when you feel anger or despair, even neutral events appear hostile or hopeless, and life mirrors that state back to you. The feeling is always creating, always generating circumstances consistent with its nature. Thoughts are like the outlines of a picture, but feelings are the colors that bring the image to life. A thought says, "I am successful," but only when it is felt with pride, confidence, and satisfaction does it begin to materialize as success in the outer world. The subconscious is not moved by logic or reason, but by the intensity of feeling. It does not care whether the feeling is of joy or sorrow, abundance or lack. It simply accepts what you dwell in and reproduces it faithfully. To harness this truth, you must make feeling your ally. When you imagine your desire, do not stop at the picture. Immerse yourself in the sensation of it being real. How would you feel if the thing you want were already yours? Let that feeling rise within you and linger there until it becomes familiar. Each repetition deepens the impression, and eventually, the feeling becomes natural, effortless, and automatic. At that moment, the state is secure, and the outer world must bow to it. Feelings generate reality because they are the essence of consciousness in motion. They are the currents that shape thought into form, the invisible power that animates imagination and gives birth to experience. To master your life, you must master your feelings, for in doing so, you master creation itself. Nighttime imagination is the gateway to creation because the final moments before sleep are the most fertile ground for impressing the subconscious mind. All day long, the conscious mind is busy, filled with distractions, arguments, analysis, and reasoning. But as you drift towards sleep, the conscious guard begins to relax, and the subconscious stands open and receptive. Whatever feeling or image you carry into sleep sinks deep into this inner realm, where it takes root and begins to shape the conditions of your life. The outer world is nothing more than the projection of the inner world, and the inner world is most easily molded in those quiet, drowsy moments when thought and feeling flow directly into the subconscious without resistance. This is why Neville Goddard so often emphasized the practice of nighttime imagination. He taught that the last 5 minutes before you surrender to sleep are the most important minutes of your day. In this time, you must not replay the disappointments, failures, or frustrations of the day, for to do so is to sow seeds that will bring forth more of the same. Instead, you are to deliberately construct within your imagination a scene that implies your wish is fulfilled. It may be a simple moment, a friend congratulating you, a loved one embracing you, a letter in your hand confirming what you desired. The scene need not be elaborate. What matters is that it feels natural and real to you. Once the scene is chosen, you enter into it with feeling. You do not observe it as if it were a movie, You participate in it as though it were happening now. You hear the voices, you sense the environment, you allow yourself to feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of already having achieved your desire. And as you feel this with intensity, you drift into sleep. The subconscious accepts this feeling as truth, for in the drowsy state it cannot distinguish between fact and imagination. It only knows the sensation impressed upon it, and it works tirelessly to bring that sensation into visible form. The reason nighttime imagination is so powerful is that sleep is a return to the creative source. Each night, as the body rests, the mind sinks into the deeper levels of consciousness, and from this depth life itself is renewed. To consciously guide your imagination before sleep is to give direction to this renewal. You are planting seeds that will grow in the unseen realm and eventually manifest in the seen. Just as a farmer trusts the hidden processes of the soil, you must trust that the imaginal act performed at night is silently reshaping your destiny. Many people allow their nighttime hours to be dominated by worry, fear, and regret. They replay arguments, think of bills unpaid, or dread the responsibilities of tomorrow. Without realizing it, they are planting weeds in the garden of the subconscious. And the next day, the outer world obliges by reflecting more struggle and difficulty. Yet the same mind that unconsciously sows weeds can consciously plant flowers. It is only a matter of discipline, choosing, night after night, to enter the state of the wish fulfilled, and to fall asleep in its embrace. Nighttime imagination is also the most effortless time to create because the natural state of drowsiness resembles meditation. The conscious mind grows quiet, and the boundary between thought and reality becomes thin. You can more easily believe yourself to be what you desire, more easily feel the reality of the scene you construct. In waking hours, the mind may argue, saying, "This is impossible, this cannot be." But at night, as the body relaxes and the mind softens, imagination becomes vivid and faith becomes natural. When practiced consistently, this nightly ritual transforms the course of your life. You may not see immediate changes, but like seeds growing beneath the soil, the results are certain. Days, weeks, or months later, you find yourself in situations eerily similar to the scenes you once imagined. A conversation, a letter, an opportunity appears exactly as you rehearsed in your mind. The world rearranges itself to match the assumption impressed upon the subconscious in those sacred moments before sleep. To understand nighttime imagination is to understand the secret of effortless creation. You do not struggle, you do not strive, you do not chase results in the outer world. You simply enter the state of the wish fulfilled in the stillness of night, and you allow the unseen power within to arrange the details. The path by which it happens is not your concern. Your only task is to persist in this nightly practice, to fall asleep as the person you long to be, to surrender to sleep clothed in the feeling of fulfillment. Night after night, you train yourself to occupy your desired state until it becomes natural, until it feels like the most familiar part of you. And when that feeling becomes natural, the outer world must echo it, for the law is unfailing. Nighttime imagination is the gateway to creation because it is the time when the subconscious is most open, when the seeds are most easily planted, and when the invisible act of assumption carries the greatest power to shape your destiny live from the end, not toward the end. Because to live toward the end is to continually affirm its absence, while to live from the end is to rest in its reality as though it were already here. Most people spend their lives moving toward desires, always imagining them as something to be reached in the future, and by doing so, they place them forever out of reach. To live from the end is a radical shift in consciousness. It requires you to abandon the idea of striving, waiting, or hoping, and instead step into the state of already being the person you long to be, already having the thing you wish to possess, already dwelling in the condition you desire. It is an inner act of claiming completion, of assuming that the journey is finished even if the evidence of the senses has not yet confirmed it. When you live toward the end, your language, thoughts, and feelings carry the vibration of lack. You say, "I will be, I hope to, one day it will happen," and the subconscious accepts these statements as truth. faithfully reproducing the state of not having. The future you long for never arrives, for the law of consciousness grants you only what you are, not what you want. Living from the end, however, shifts everything. You speak as one who already possesses, you feel as one who already enjoys, you think as one who has already arrived. This assumption, when persisted in, imprints itself on the subconscious, and the outer world reorganizes to reflect it. Living from the end is not pretense or delusion, it is faith in action. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And to live from the end is to treat the unseen as the only reality that matters. It is to trust that the world within shapes the world without, and that if you remain loyal to the state assumed, it must harden into fact. Every great achievement begins with someone daring to live from the end. The artist paints with the end vision in mind. The architect designs as though the building already stands. The inventor persists in the feeling of success long before the mechanism is perfected. To live from the end is also to free yourself from the tyranny of time. Time belongs to the outer world of appearances, but imagination is timeless. When you enter a scene in imagination and feel it real, you step out of the linear sequence of events and into the eternal now. You are not waiting for the end, you are living it now. The subconscious does not operate in past or future, it only knows the present impression. Therefore, to assume the end is to give it reality in the present moment, and the subconscious, faithful to its nature, brings it forth. Consider the difference between longing for love and living from love. The one who longs for love continues to feel lonely, continues to look outward for proof, and continues to affirm the absence of what they seek. The one who lives from love, however, feels cherished, secure, and desired within themselves. And soon the world mirrors this inner state with relationships and experiences that match the assumption. The same applies to wealth, health, or any desire. To live from the end is to embody the feeling now, not after conditions change, but before, knowing that it is this inner embodiment that changes conditions. Living from the end also demands persistence, for the senses will often contradict the assumption. Appearances may scream the opposite of what you feel within, but the law requires loyalty to the unseen, not the seen. The shadow may take time to catch up with the object, but it must follow. Each time doubt arises, you gently return to the end, reaffirming, it is already done. This is not a battle with appearances, but a calm confidence that the outer must yield to the inner. To live from the end is to experience peace instead of striving, rest instead of struggle. You no longer chase results, for you know they are inevitable. You no longer plead with life to grant you favors, for you recognize that life can only reflect the state you occupy. The joy of the end becomes your daily companion, and in that joy, you draw to yourself all that is consistent with it. Practical application of this principle can be found in the simple exercise of creating an imaginal scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire. Night after night, before sleep, you enter this scene and live in it until it feels natural. You hear the words of congratulation, you feel the satisfaction of achievement, you sense the reality of the state. Over time, this becomes more real to you than the evidence of the senses, and once it does, the manifestation is certain. The scene itself is not the cause but the means by which you move into the feeling of the end, and it is the feeling that creates. To live from the end is to align with the highest truth that consciousness is the only reality. You are not a victim of circumstances, but the author of them. And the state you dwell in now is writing the script of your future. If you wish to change the script, you must change the state. To live from the end is to choose your state deliberately and to persist in it until it becomes your dwelling place. The moment you do, life cannot help but conform, for it is powerless to resist the law of assumption. The call is simple yet profound: live from the end, not toward the end. Step into the fulfillment now, feel it, claim it, and walk as though it were already true. This is not pretending but creating. This is not hoping but knowing. This is the way of manifestation, the way of faith, the way of conscious living. What you dare to feel as real will inevitably be made visible, because feeling is the one infallible bridge between the unseen world of imagination and the tangible world of experience. Everything that exists in your life today first began as an invisible assumption, a state you once entertained, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and clothed in the conviction of feeling. To dare to feel something as real is to take hold of the creative power of consciousness itself, and to command it to externalize in form. Nothing can resist this law, for consciousness is the only reality, and feeling is its language. Most people live in the bondage of appearances, believing that what the senses report is the only truth. They accept circumstances as final and limit their imagination to what they can see or touch. Yet the senses are only reporters, they do not create. Creation begins within. To feel a state as real, even in the absence of evidence, is to plant the seed of its manifestation. Just as the seed of an oak tree contains the certainty of becoming a mighty tree, the feeling of an accomplished desire contains within itself the certainty of its fulfillment. You do not need to force it into being. You only need to dare to feel it fully, to surrender yourself to it as though it were already your reality. The word dare is significant because it takes courage to defy appearances, to look at the world as it is and still insist upon what you know within. To dare is to exercise faith, to choose conviction over doubt, to stand firm in imagination when the outer world contradicts you. The timid soul waits for evidence before believing, but the one who understands the law dares to feel first and allows evidence to follow. This daring act is the beginning of creation, for the subconscious accepts, without question, the feelings impressed upon it, and once impressed, it will produce the likeness in the outer world. Feeling is not a passing emotion, it is the deep conviction that saturates your being. When you dare to feel wealth as real, even if your pockets are empty, you live inwardly as a wealthy person. You walk differently, think differently, and relate to the world from a state of abundance. In time, the world adjusts to mirror this inner shift. When you dare to feel love as real, even if loneliness surrounds you, you carry within you the warmth and security of being cherished, and the outer world responds with relationships that reflect that inner state. It is not a matter of pretending or forcing, but of truly embodying the feeling until it becomes natural. The law operates with impartial certainty. It does not choose between good or bad, wanted or unwanted. It simply externalizes the feeling that dominates. Many live in cycles of struggle because they dare to feel fear, doubt, and lack as real. They rehearse misfortune in their imagination. They feel the weight of failure before it arrives, and life obliges by producing circumstances consistent with those inner convictions. Yet the same law that produces struggle can produce triumph when feeling is directed deliberately. Dare to feel success, dare to feel joy, dare to feel freedom, and these two must come to pass. The key is persistence. One fleeting moment of feeling may not be enough to uproot years of entrenched belief, but when you persistently dare to return to the feeling of your fulfilled desire, day after day, night after night, the subconscious is impressed more deeply, and eventually the feeling takes root as the natural state of being. Once it feels natural to you, once it ceases to feel like an effort and becomes the most obvious truth, the outer world cannot resist aligning with it. The law is unwavering. What you dare to feel as real must be made visible. This principle is most powerfully applied in the quiet moments before sleep, when the conscious mind grows still and the subconscious is open. In this drowsy state, you deliberately construct imaginal scenes that imply your wish fulfilled. You enter the scene not as an observer but as a participant, feeling it real, hearing the sounds, sensing the atmosphere, experiencing the satisfaction. As you fall asleep in this feeling, the subconscious accepts it and begins its work of outpicturing it in the world of form. Night after night, you dare to feel it again, and soon your days reflect what your nights have conceived. The daring lies in choosing feeling over fact, imagination over sense data, inner conviction over outer evidence. It is easy to feel wealthy when wealth surrounds you, easy to feel loved when affection is pouring in, easy to feel successful when recognition is given. But the law demands that you feel first, before the evidence appears. To dare is to reverse the order, to feel the end now, and to trust that the means will appear. This is why it is said that imagination creates reality, for to feel a state with conviction is to bring it into being. Think of the great innovators, artists, and leaders throughout history. They all dared to feel their vision as real long before the world could see it. The painter felt the completed masterpiece while the canvas was still blank. The inventor felt the triumph of success while the mechanism still failed. The visionary felt the reality of a new world while the old one still resisted. Their daring to feel brought into visibility what once seemed impossible. You are no different. The same law that operated for them operates for you, for the law of consciousness shows no partiality. The challenge, then, is not whether the law works, but whether you are willing to dare. Will you dare to feel health in the face of sickness? Will you dare to feel abundance when appearances scream poverty? Will you dare to feel love when the world appears indifferent? Will you dare to feel success when failure surrounds you? If you can, the law guarantees that what you feel as real will eventually harden into fact. It may come through unexpected channels. It may unfold in ways beyond your reasoning, but it must come, for the outer world is compelled to mirror the inner state. To live by this principle is to live as a conscious creator, no longer at the mercy of circumstances, but master over them. You understand that the outer world has no power of its own, that it is but the shadow cast by the inner feeling. Change the feeling, and the shadow must change. What you dare to feel as real today is the life you will inevitably live tomorrow. The question is not whether it will appear, but whether you will persist long enough in the feeling for it to take root and bear fruit. What you dare to feel as real will inevitably be made visible, for feeling is creation, and creation is the law of life.